Hey, yo, what up? Welcome back. This is not a podcast. It's just my thoughts with Rob Markman. I wanted to get to this. I've been meaning to get to this all week. I've been trying to find a way into this subject. All right. So week one of the Diddy trial, or it's not exactly week one, but it's week one of from the testimony start, the opening argument from both the prosecution and the defense. Was on Monday, and then we started hearing from witnesses. So I just wanted to recap that. I've been following all week. I've subscribed to Matthew Russell Lee from Inner City Press on Twitter, on X, and I've been watching Lauren LaRosa from the Breakfast Club. And she has a resume prior to the Breakfast Club, but she's doing amazing work. Like, actually, these two are actually inside of the courtroom. And, I've been reading the different headlines that come up, but in terms of people that I've been following, I'm not in the courtroom. I'm not on the ground covering this, but I've been following Inner City Press, and I've subscribed to Inner City Press and been watching Lauren LaRosa's coverage, and that's how I've been getting most of my information. And then just the random headlines. Well, it's not random. There's a ton of headlines from a ton of different outlets, but like the more reputable ones are the ones that I'm following, just to try to wrap my head around this whole situation. I haven't been doing these videos day to day for a number of reasons. For one, this is just heavy as hell, y'all, right? The emotional weight of this is real. So salute to all the jurors, the people who work in the court reporters, the journalists, and of course the alleged victims, their families, Puff's family, who has to sit in the courtroom. It's a lot to hear and to take in, right? For everybody. I can imagine this would be hard for a number of people. Maybe some people who work in the court are a little desensitized to it because it's their job. They hear things like this all the time. But I do want to acknowledge how heavy this is. The other thing is that I just can't. So the emotional weight of covering this day to day, I couldn't do, and even to find the time to do it. And the other thing is I can't be better than Lauren. She is in that courtroom every single day doing the work. I can't be better at this than Inner City Press every day, who wake up, get dressed, go to the courtroom, plus do whatever their other jobs are, right? Because we all kind of got other jobs and other hustles, other responsibilities. With this particular case right here, I can't be better than them. So I go to who I feel is really good at it. I go to who I feel is the best for my information. So if you're looking for day-to-day coverage, I suggest one or both of them. You may have some others that you feel or that you're into who are doing dope day-to-day coverage. That's fine. That's who I'm going to. But I figured let me go week to week because this is an important case. Diddy is one of the biggest figures and contributors to hip-hop music and business and culture that we ever seen. I mean, I'm personally a fan. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, so Big, and I'm from that era when Big took off, when Ready to Die comes out. I'm a freshman in high school. Like, this is prime time for me of when you start developing your own identity, where my older brothers' favorite rappers are no longer my favorite rappers. I'm developing my own taste, my own thing. I'm outside, 13 years old, Ready to Die. That whole Bad Boy era. Like, I'm a big fan of the music, man. So this is important. So I figured what I could do is just discuss with y'all week to week and do recaps. And so I'm going to try to do that. This is going to go on for several weeks. And in it, just so you know, I'm not going to get into graphic detail. You see the headlines. You see the social media posts. Honestly, I probably get more traffic that way if I dress up a headline with some of the more maybe salacious things or some of the more freaky acts or detailed acts or whatever, man. Y'all just know the headlines that attract people. I probably get more traffic that way. But, this is important to me in that I'm not trying to treat it like, specifically like this week, Cassie's testimony, right? Just set off a bunch of headlines. I'm not trying to treat this like gossip. It's information. So it's a fine line between reporting and sensationalizing is the word that I'm looking for. So, it's out there if you want to find it. I'm just not going to go into super detail, but May 12th on Monday, the juror selection is concluded. We get to the opening arguments. So remember, Diddy is charged with one count of racketeering conspiracy, and that's alleging that he ran a criminal enterprise, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, bribery, arson, obstruction of justice, and so this is a racketeering conspiracy charge. 2 counts of sex trafficking. which alleges using force, fraud, coercion to compel individuals to engage in commercial sex acts. And then 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. And that's alleging that, it's the transportation of individuals across state lines to engage in prostitution. If convicted, if convicted, how much time is, I think it's life. I should have had this in my notes. Yeah, if convicted, that's what I thought. I had that in my notes. I was like, let me just double check it. But if convicted, Combs, he faces up to life in prison. So serious charges. You know what I'm saying? So prosecution's case seems to be focused on the testimony of 2 victims, Cassie and the Jane Doe. That he coerced these women to take place in the freak-offs. We all know what the freak-offs are, and they would last for several hours, sometimes days. They would take place in various cities across the country, and they're alleging his staff organized it, and the various businesses that he owns paid the expenses. That's where the criminal enterprise thing comes in, right? That's where the racketeering comes in. Now, by this point, we all seen the tape of Cassie being beat in L.A. in the hotel, in the Intercontinental Hotel by Diddy. There's no one seeing that. And, the defense in their opening argument, and you can see as they cross-examine the witnesses, the defense is owning that. Diddy's team is owning that. They're not, running from that. In their opening arguments, they acknowledge to the jury that Puff has a temper, that he got violent, that he drank, that he used drugs, that he was an abuser, domestic violence. You know what I'm saying? So they'll admit all of these things, but what they're saying is that doesn't mean that he's guilty of racketeering or sex trafficking. So they're admitting to the things. And honestly, it makes sense because we can't unsee that video. We all saw it, and I think most reasonable people believe it. And believe, hey, that also wasn't the only time. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't take, without seeing it, you'd be like, oh, this. I can understand when Cassie says there was a pattern of behavior, even though if we just seen the one tape. Okay, this isn't an isolated incident. But his attorney said, had he been charged with domestic violence or assault, we would not be here right now. In this specific case with these specific charges is what he's alluding to. He said that the video was indefensible. But that it was evidence of domestic abuse and not sex trafficking. He said he will be responsible. He will be accountable for the things he did, but we will fight for his freedoms for the things that he did not do. So this is the defense's kind of stance, hints at their strategy that they're not running. They're not trying to paint Puff as, they're leaning into the imperfectness of Puff, the violent nature, the vile nature of Puff. But what they're saying is, well, not these specific charges, though. So far we heard from this week, we heard from a couple of witnesses. We heard from Israel Flores. He was the guard at the LA hotel where Cassie was assaulted and beaten by Puff. He took some video of himself of the video, the hotel video. He videotaped the video with his phone, to show his wife, because he said his wife wouldn't believe him. Claims that he was offered money by Puff and interpreted that offering of money to be a bribe so that nobody will find out, to keep it quiet. We heard testimony from the security guard, Israel Flores. We heard testimony from Daniel Phillip, an exotic male dancer who participated in the freak-offs. He detailed the freak-offs, the drug use. He claimed that he had to stop participating after he saw Diddy hit Cassie. I'm a little unclear, and I'll say this, whether he actually saw it or heard the slaps. There was this thing where he heard the slaps, but whatever. There was an incident where he was around in the vicinity to if not see it with his own eyes, to come to the conclusion, to reasonably come to the conclusion that Diddy had hit Cassie, and he said he couldn't do it anymore. They seem to have formed some type of relationship, or in his mind, he talked about maybe he had a friendship with her, or he was closer to her than he thought. But for her, maybe it was just, he was the freak off partner. But, they tried to talk about whether he developed feelings for her or something like that. So that was all part of the examination, the cross examination. But Daniel Phillips' testimony helped to paint the picture of what the freak offs was, how they came to be from the male exotic dancer perspective, the male eventually, to pay to have sex. The male brought in there paid to be a part of these freak offs. And then Cassie did several days of testimony where she detailed her and Diddy's relationship. He signed her as an artist. She talked about when the romance started, the intimacy, the freak offs, her role in it, the sexual details, like his desire to watch her with an escort, with a male escort, his desire to film, Diddy's desire to direct the action, the baby oil, we need more baby oil, whatever the obsession with baby oil was. She testified about being urinated on, and her uncomfortability with that, ejaculated on, and how she would be intimate with the escort, but then maybe go to another room and be intimate with Diddy after being ejaculated on. She talked about the various partners and escorts, the drug use, how it affected her physical health. She talked about, UTIs, her developing UTIs, and even the antibiotics, which normally takes care of a UTI, stopped working on her because she was getting them so frequently. She talked about being forced or expected to do the freak offs while she was on her period. She talked about how it affected her mental health and her self-esteem. She testified about the physical abuse that she faced, which was several times. It wasn't, again, we saw, according to Cassie, we saw with our own eyes the one tape. According to Cassie Testimony, this was a regular thing. This happened numerous times during their relationship. She talked about the consequences that she faced for not submitting to him. She alleged that he kept videos and then he would threaten to release them and ruin her reputation if she did not submit. So, what she's alleging is some form of blackmail to kind of keep her in line and keep her going with it. She admitted to being in love with him and wanting to make him happy, and seeing the freak offs as a way of being closer to him, despite knowing that he had other women, despite that she'd rather, and I don't know if she said this explicitly, but the feeling that I get is that she'd rather do the freak offs with him than, if not, he was going to do it with somebody else. And if she was craving intimacy with him, that was the way to get it. You know what I'm saying? Which is that there's a lot of gray area there. During her examination, her relationship with Kid Cudi was discussed. And Diddy allegedly blowing up Kid Cudi's car as a result of their relationship. She discussed the breakups and the makeups between her and Diddy. She testified about how he allegedly raped her, but also within her testimony, it came out that after that alleged rape, that she had consensual sex with him after. The jury heard about details surrounding the beginning of her relationship with Cassie's now husband, Alex Fine, and the father of her children, but also her involvement with Diddy during those early days of the relationship. It was a very, very complicated back and forth relationship that they seem to have. No matter what side you I think all parties will admit that it was this very complicated back and forth relationship of just hurt and a cycle of hurt. She was emotional at times, understandably so. She is also pregnant while she is on the stand. Without her being pregnant, I'm sure all of this is emotional. We saw tears. We saw her crying. I think we see that anyway. But also to see her on the stand and talk about all of this while bringing life into the world, while being pregnant, it adds just another layer of emotion to it, at least from us seeing it. But she was emotional, and understandably so. During the cross-examination, during the several days, the defense, like in their opening argument, Didn't really challenge that Diddy was a domestic abuser, the details of the freak offs, the drug abuse. There was a time that he overdosed in 2012. Instead, they challenged, or at least tried to paint a picture during their cross examination that, and maybe without explicitly saying, but through the testimony, that Cassie wasn't necessarily held against her will, trying to paint that picture, but rather that her and Diddy were just like in this twisted relationship. Through their cross-examination, they tried to paint the picture that Cassie could have left the relationship at certain points at least. And they also worked to highlight the instances where Puff wasn't this monster and was concerned about, like, for instance, like Cassie's drug use, and, tried to get her into rehab because he was afraid for her well-being. So, they also try to put instances in there where, hey, he wasn't just this monster 24/7 that was beating you. There was some complicated ups and downs, and he was concerned at various points. And when it goes to the rehab part of it, I mean, she admits to her drug abuse, and she says that she used the drugs to numb the pain, to get through the freak offs, to get through whatever that emotion, to detach herself from it, and she became hooked on those drugs, which makes sense. They also uncovered the amount that Diddy paid to Cassie to settle her civil lawsuit against him in 2023, November 2023. He paid $20 million to settle that civil lawsuit. She had the book that she was going to release. I think she went to him and asked for $30 million. Privately, it came out that, an assistant or somebody who worked for Diddy said, he's not really taking this seriously. So then she went ahead with a civil suit, and he paid what was to us an undisclosed amount, but it came out that it was $20 million. They also uncovered that a $10 million settlement that she had with the Intercontinental Hotel in LA. I choose my words carefully here, but I guess then the question becomes, well, what's the motivation for the money? But Cassie had said very clearly during her testimony that she would give back the $20 million to undo the freak offs. If she can kind of erase that part of her life, and that had never happened, she would give back the $20 million. Of course, that's all hypothetical, but she said, I would have agency and autonomy. So she didn't feel that she had the agency or the autonomy to say no. She didn't feel like she had the control over her life. As an opinion that I have here, this part is my opinion, right? And again, I'm not in the courtroom, right? So I'm not trying to paint myself as an expert, but here's an opinion that I have here. One thing that I believe that factors in is the age difference between them, because Cassie was legal and at the age of consent, right? That's true. But there's a 17-year age difference between them. They first met when she was 19. Legal and the age of consent, but she's a young girl and he's 17 years older than her. Or she's a young woman and he's 17 years older than her. And at 21 years old is when he first kissed her at her birthday party that year, and it seems like that's when the romantic relationship started. So that she's 21 and he's 38. During one part of her testimony, Cassie has said that Diddy asked her, what nickname does she call her grandfather? And that Puff had asked her to call him by that same nickname, which was Pop Pop. There was clearly a power dynamic here that was based on age and money and stature. You know what I'm saying? Is it illegal? No, but man, for lack of a better word, it's a mindfuck. Was she legal? Was it the age of consent? Yes, mindfuck is probably the wrong word, but it messes with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, as a young person, you can see it. Is she legal? Is she the age of consent? Yes. But how young and impressionable someone can be at that age, especially in the presence of a star like Diddy, especially when your aspirations is like, yo, I want to be this singer, I want to be this. And Cassie came out, had Me and You was a big record when it came out, but didn't have much music after that hit the heights of that, right? So it also almost felt like her career, her aspirations were the carrot stick that was dangled in front of her. She got a taste of it, of her dreams coming true, whatever, and she felt like for whatever reason, this was the way to get it, you know. While also, and I believe that she genuinely had feelings and at some point love or what felt like love for this man. So you know, I say all that and I caveat it with like it's not illegal to be with somebody 17 years younger than you, but there's a taking advantage part of what's going on is what I'm saying, man. Like I said, there's a power dynamic based on age, money, and stature. I believe that there were times from just what I've read and what I've taken in about this trial that she willingly participated in the freak offs and the drug use. Like I said, she said that she used the drugs to numb herself, to detach herself from the action. And because she talked about how uncomfortable she would be forced to, you know, do things on her period, being urinated on, you know, just being filmed, having that hung over her, all of that, you know. I also believe that the pattern of abuse and you know, and that abuse has long lasting effects. It scars and is bruises you don't see. So where she willingly participates in the freak offs, yeah, because if I know it, I'm gonna get beat. You know what I'm saying? So the you take the path of least resistance or seemingly so. Here's what's abundantly clear. Here's what nobody is denying, not even Diddy's defense team, is that he's an abuser. He's done terrible things, and it's beyond just a freaky alternative sex lifestyle. What the prosecution has to convince the jury is that he's guilty of the racketeering, the sex trafficking, the prostitution. Was this organized crime, or was this just a fucked up, twisted relationship? You know, did they hit Diddy with the appropriate charges? You know, it's something that I think we're going to watch. And obviously when the jury goes to deliberate this thing. This was the first week of testimony, so the trial will go on for several weeks. I think the money conversation will be important down the line. Who paid the escorts? Which accountants, you know, which accounts did the money come from? Like, did it come out of, you know, Sean Combs' personal account? Did it come from Bad Boy account? Did it come from a Sean John account? Did it come, like, was it one of the businesses that was paying for this? Was he paying for this personally? Who paid the escorts? Where did the money come from? Did Diddy's business fund this lifestyle? And as the government is alleging, these crimes, the trafficking, the alleged trafficking, right? I think the money, where the money, what paid for what, ends up being important. So I think at some point there'll be some type of financial discussion, some type of witnesses called to the stands to maybe follow the trail of the money, and I think that'll be important. Did he employ his staff to help orchestrate these freak offs? Like, you know, Cassie talked about certain security guards and things like that, and assistants and helping to set things up. You know, did they help him in any way cover up the crimes, the staff? Like the abuse at the Intercontinental Hotel, the video that we saw, and Flores saying, hey, he was offered money and he received that off. He didn't that offer to him meant that it was a bribe. Like he, when he was offered the money, the way he processed that is, oh, this is a bribe. So those type of things, right? I think we'll start to maybe paint the picture of how organized this crime was. You know, I use crime in quotation marks because it's not for me to decide. Cassie definitely had a rough week, and it seems that in order to prove that Diddy did the specific crimes that he's charged with, the prosecution has more work to do. They put her through the ringer. One, just during the prosecution's examination of her is just tough and emotional to have to recount these things in front of the world. And the defense, with their cross-examination, you know, they asked the tough questions. They put her through the ringer. So she had a tough week. And it seems that in order to prove that Diddy actually did the specific crimes he's charged with, the prosecution has more work to do than just Cassie. You know, I think that the Cassie testimony helps just paint the picture of and open up the world of what was going on. Because what we saw was a very fucked up and complicated 11-year relationship between Diddy and Cassie. But we have a long way to go to see, okay, like how those link to the crimes that he's being charged with. Next week, former Danity Kane and Diddy Dirty Money artist Don Richard is scheduled to testify. And it'll be interesting to see if somewhere down the line at some point if Diddy will testify himself. I have zero idea. But Inner City Press, when asked, he said he believes that the odds are low. And again, this is who I've been following. This is who I trust. He says he believes that the odds are low. He says Diddy, he says it's not like out of the question. He didn't close the door on it, but he said the odds are low. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, man, this thing is wild. I'll be back next week to talk about the weekend, the Diddy trial. Like I said, I'm not gonna give you the salacious, over the top stuff. I just don't feel comfortable doing that, but this is an important one to discuss. All right, cool. So to the next time, peace.